All right, welcome back, and I'm going to give you an advanced English lesson. And now it starts out easy, real quick. I like to talk about my week. I show the picture. The rice is coming along well. This is my rice patch growing. Something terrible news, actually. When I made this lesson, my wonderful cat Misap was dying. He is now dead. We have buried him. In my next lesson, I'll show you the burial site. He was a wonderful cat for so long, 7 years old, and he had lived with a cough for a long time. And we, luckily, we found him. He went outside to kind of die in nature, like many animals do. And our neighbor actually found him, and we brought him back and uh, had him in a bathtub. Actually, this is our bathroom right here. We have this stone wall. It's kind of partly outside, and um, we he had his last breaths close to us. Um, and another part of the week was looking at these. Well, let's ask you what they are, because in many languages, I've come across, they mix up lemon and lime, or they only have one word, or they call them green limes or yellow lemons, or yellow limes, green lemons. Do you know which one is which? The green ones are limes and the yellow ones are lemons. Now in Thailand, limes are what are used, but some people will call the lime a lemon, and it doesn't upset me, but it irritates me a little bit. So they're significantly different. They're used differently. I like them both. In Thailand, we use limes a lot, and I love it. I love many things that use lime. But I also like lemons. For making lemonade, I like lemonade better than limeade. I think it tastes better. Now it's hard to find the lemon tree. So I found a lemon tree, I planted it, and here it is growing over here. As you can see, they're not very yellow. I don't know if they will turn yellow. They're not juicy, but yet, I mean, they're still hard. I'm hoping they turn yellow. Um, I don't know. It's possible lemons don't grow well in this tropical region. Um, I don't know. We'll find out if I get lemons soon. But today's lesson is focused on the greenhouse. Now, greenhouses usually are made of glass, right? They're steel and glass. They're called green because you grow things that are green, but often they're used for places that are cold, and they can kind of um, allow more light and keep uh, plants warm in cold times. For me, for us here, our reasoning was different, and I'm going to explain that in a story that uh, provides you 5 new vocabulary words. Those 5 vocabulary words are transition, cultivate, endeavor, plague, and resilient. We're going to start out. I wrote this story in third person, which means I'm referring to myself as he, because my students will read it, and I don't want them saying I and me as much. It's better to read it as a narration. Now I'm the one reading it. I'm going to refer to myself. In the past, teacher CD, that's me, with his wife Ice and their son Gabaga, focused on planting fruit trees in their garden. They found it rewarding because although these trees might take 5 to 10 years to bear fruit, they generally require less attention. Once planted, trees only needed water during rain-scarce seasons, growing majestically over the years. No vocabulary words here that are part of the lesson, but there are some words to focus on. We know what a bear is. It's an animal, but this is a verb, to bear. We don't use it that often, but actually, when you say I was born in 1981, then we are actually using the past particle of that word, to bear, right? To bear a child means to have a child be born. We use born often. We do say to bear a child as well, but we can also bear fruit, produce fruit, or we don't, but the trees do. So to produce, or to have, to give. So good use of the word there. Another word is scarce. Now, if you don't know what scarce means, you know it's rain scarce season. So it must mean, if you had no idea what the word scarce meant, you would know, okay, it probably means it either a lot of rain or a little rain. Um, and then by context, once planted, trees only needed water during rain scarce seasons. Surely you know that scarce means to be less, to have less of, to be little in quantity for. And that last word, majestically. Now, majestically is an adverb, as we can tell by that final ly, and it's describing the verb growing. That's a little actually more abstract. So I would like to focus on the adjective, which is majestic. Now, majestic is inherently beautiful, but it's not graceful beauty. You know, it's not a woman dancing with melodic sounds and fragrant flowers blossoming around. It's more masculine, a masculine beauty, something perhaps like a mountain, a big rocky mountain that stands there, maybe a lion or something that has beauty, but it's in a more majestic way, right? So majestic, that's an adjective. Majestic is going to describe these kind of a masculine beauty in those ways. Again, as a poet, you could use it in different ways at your leisure to describe whatever you want, but it's good to know the feeling, at least I think most people would get when they read the word majestic. But there's some subjectivity to it, I imagine. And it's good to translate that in your own language and see, is it similar to how I described it? Do you think it's a good translation, or suggest an edit on Google? I'm always suggesting edits on Google because I think they use the wrong word. Recently, they've transitioned to planting vegetables, including tomatoes, green beans, okra, cucumbers, pumpkins, gourds, cilantro, garlic, carrots, potatoes, and even rice. Vegetables demand more care. They are often challenging to cultivate and must be replanted after harvest. This shift was primarily influenced by Ice's preference, but the family's ability to garden was also dictated by young Gabaga's needs. So we have two of the vocabulary words here. I want to focus on those. Transitioned, right? We transitioned, we changed, to change form, to transform, right? That's the word transition. You can kind of tell by context. We transitioned from more tree planting, which is thinking about the future. Let's get that taken care of. We have to do that as soon as possible, because the longer we wait, the longer we'll ever have fruit. So you got to get on that. That's part of the reason. But this shift, right? This shift refers to the transition that was made. It also had to do with Ice. Gabagaz still, he's not 40 yet. He's 3 years and 9 months and very attached to his mother. And she has a difficult time getting away to do the gardening. And it does. I'm doing a lot of walkways and tree planting, and like I mentioned, I mean, the gardening takes more. It's a full time. Like if I were doing gardening, I wouldn't be able to be doing the other things. So it's really just now Gabaga has kind of gotten old enough where he can kind of take part and be involved as well. And the word cultivate, now we're going to use it in different contexts because all of these words are important words in colloquial and business and high stake tests, English vocabulary words. So in the context of gardening, cultivating is taking care of and growing, right? It's you plant the seed and then you cultivate it and then you harvest it. So it's kind of everything in between the first and the last steps. Now in our final part of the story here, there are 3 vocabulary words. Let me read the full thing first. Their new endeavor wasn't without challenges. Snails plagued their garden, feasting on young sprouts and stifling potential growth. They sought natural solutions, keen to avoid harmful chemicals that might upset the soil's balance. Their answer? A greenhouse. By germinating seeds under the protective cover of a tarp, they nurtured their sprouts to a size resilient against the snail's appetites. Once sturdy, these seedlings were ready to be transplanted back in the garden. So we have 3 new words here, and we have the word endeavor. Their new endeavor Endeavor can be a verb, right? But in this case, it's a noun. Their new endeavor, their new goal, their new effort, their new objective, their new. It's usually it's all of those things. Endeavor is usually fun, but challenging, right? An endeavor. You could have a business endeavor. Uh, Often, anybody who wants to start a business, you would call it a business endeavor. You're going to expect to see challenges in an endeavor, but the word endeavor, I think, is very positive to have an endeavor. It's almost like a journey. Plagued. The word plagued is well, it's comes from the word the plague, or plague is disease, right? There was the Black Plague, right? So plague is a disease, but to be plagued is kind of a play on that. Something acts as a disease or is very troublesome in some way. So we use the word plagued. You could say something is plagued. It's usually a physical thing, like snails. In this sense, we can say snails plagued our garden, right? Is as if they were a disease. They eat all the sprouts. They roll over them. Seed starts to sprout. They just roll over that sprout and eat it. So that's why we got our greenhouse. It's to protect us from the snails always eating our sprouts. Now this is an interesting word, sought. What does sought mean? What is the word sought? It's the past tense of what word? Tricky if you don't think about it. It's seek, right? To seek something. The past tense of seek is not seeked, it's sought. Although you might hear people use seeked. I don't believe it's correct. There always are weird variations. Somebody maybe there might be some dictionaries that accept it, but sought is the word that we use for the past tense of seek. We sought natural solutions, and we do still seek natural solutions because we're keen, right? We're keen on avoiding harmful chemicals, right? We're very steadfast on not using chemicals in our land, not for fertilizers, not for pesticides. We could kill these, but we don't want that going into our soil. It's going to disturb our soil's natural balance. We want those living organisms in the soil. Soil is alive. When you start putting chemicals in the dirt, it's going to ruin that. And also, even we don't have plumbing here. All our water runs off our land. All the shower goes into the out into the field. So we don't use any toxic soaps or bleach or anything like that. In general, the word there are other things. Protection. So is an adjective. Protective cover is gonna keep something from getting destroyed. Tarp. We use the tarp. Actually, I called this a tarp. I also called the tarp. This is actually a tarp underneath. This is like a cover. It's a cover, but it's made kind of out of a tarp-like material. That's modern style greenhouse. Much easier, very cheap. Was able to buy that, assemble it quite quickly, and nurture is like a mother and a child, or in this case, us and our baby plants. We nurture them. That's also, cultivating them in a sense until they're resilient, right? Resilient against the snail's appetites. Appetites means like hunger, right? So it has to be strong against the snail's hunger. So it has to be basically big enough. They're not going to be small sprouts that can easily be consumed by these snails. Once it gets a strong stem, the snails aren't really going to cause any problem. They'll crawl on them, but they're not going to be able to eat it, right? They're not like a pest like insects where they eat it. They could actually slime all they want. I see them on trees all the time. They don't hurt them. Who knows? They might even help them. They might eat little insects or something. So again, yeah, I believe everything has its place. We just gotta get our sprouts going first, and then the snails, I don't think, are going to cause too much problem. And birds eat them. I mean, I like life. I don't want to miss up the just the balance of nature. They're there. If I can kind of get them out. I mean, birds eat them. I'm happy when birds eat them and just kind of move them over to the side. But I wouldn't want to take them completely out. It could just throw everything off. So let's go ahead and read true or false questions here. Teacher CD and his family have always been planting vegetables. Now, technically we have, but according to the story, no, it's false. The fruit trees bear fruit within a year. Technically, some of them do, like banana trees do, but according to the reading, it's false. Snails were a significant problem for their vegetable garden. That is true. Absolutely 100% true. They used chemicals to deal with the snails. No, I just explained that we didn't. That's why we made the greenhouse method involved using a tarp to protect the plants. Yes, in one way or another, it certainly did. Next part, now are using those words, finding the definition based on what you remember. We have transitioned, cultivate, plagued, endeavor, and resilient. Let's go one by one. You try to answer them quickly. I'm going to give you the answer as soon as we get it. So strong and able to recover quickly from difficult conditions. Sounds like resilient to me, right? Yeah, we'll do red. To undergo a process leading to a different state or condition. Sounds like transition. Sure. To grow or raise under conditions that promote development. Okay, cultivate. That sounds pretty good. To cause persistent distress or trouble to. That sounds like plagued. An attempt to achieve a goal. That's pretty good for endeavor. Next one. Same words. Let's put it in a fill in the blank here. The community showed how resilient they were after building their town after the big storm. The village was plagued by food shortages and drought for several years. Notice the use of plague, not a physical thing like a disease or snails, but having food shortages and drought. You can be plagued by drought, right? Drought is when it's a rain scarce season. So important context there. The company transitioned from being a small business to a large company in a few years. It's essential to a positive mindset to achieve success in life. It is essential to cultivate. Now that's a good one there. Another use of the word. Cultivate a positive mindset, right? That's our mind. So we can cultivate things that are not physical, right? We use the word in the garden to help us understand the meaning, and then we apply it in abstract situations. You can cultivate a positive work environment. You can cultivate a collaborative mindset. We said mindset, or so we can do mindset, work environment. I mentioned a positive perspective. We can cultivate things that are in our mind, abstract things as well. And that last one, the International Space Station is the most complex international endeavor ever taken. It's not a true or false question. You can argue with that, but definitely the word we want to use. Now, those words were all related to a story in my life. I like to keep my English lessons real time, involved in something that's going on. They make them more personal, but then I like to add something, put those words into context. I had one student who she's about to go into college and she likes fashion and design and stuff. So I said, okay, I'm going to create a paragraph that involves those words. Of course, ChatGPT helped me out on this. And vocabulary words, the same ones related to the garden and my life, put in context of the fashion industry. So here we go. As the fashion industry transitioned into the digital age, many brands faced challenges they had never imagined. The online realm, while opening new markets, also plagued companies with fierce competition and rapidly changing trends. To stay relevant, brands had to cultivate a strong online presence and continuously adapt to consumer preferences. This endeavor was not for the faint-hearted. Only the most resilient of brands managed to thrive, turning challenges into opportunities. Okay. Again, a lot of new words. Realm can be like a world, but like an abstract world or spiritual world. Realm is a good word. We've used these words. You can see how, again, cultivate a strong online presence. That's another way, right? To cultivate, right? You can post things online, but you need influencers and ads and shares and likes and all these things that are going to cultivate a strong online presence, right? It takes time. It takes time if you want to promote something online. That is the word cultivate used in that context. So let's go ahead and add some of these words in this context here. This to succeed in the digital age, brands had to cultivate a strong online presence. The blank to stay relevant online was a challenging one. The endeavor to stay relevant online was a challenging one, and brands that were resilient could turn challenges into opportunities. True or false questions. Here we go. All brands easily adapted to the digital age. False. The online world brought about problems like fierce competition for fashion brands. True. Only the brands that gave up quickly managed to succeed in the digital transition. Wait, only the brands that gave up. Of course, that's false. Right, that gave up. Only the brands that gave up quickly managed to succeed. That wouldn't make sense at all, would it? Now, let's go ahead. Some synonyms. We have plagued, endeavor, cultivate. Now, remember, or I don't know if I mentioned this, some study I saw, probably kind of ridiculous, but it said we have to come across a word. If we come across a word 23 times, we can lock it into memory. There's some tests, but it's basically you need repetition on words, different formats. You can't just study words. Flashcards work to an extent. I like flashcards, memorizing it like that, but I like using it in different contexts. And the main thing is that a word doesn't have a fixed definition. We can use it in different ways. So that's why I like to get the definition, read it in a paragraph, match it or fill in the blanks, find a synonym. Remember, a synonym does not mean it has the same meaning. It means that the word could be interchanged in some context. It might only be one context. Many words have, they have synonyms that are opposites. It's crazy, but words in some ways can be used as like cool and hot are synonyms, right? And so cool, a synonym to cool is cold, even though they're not exactly the same, and then cold and hot are opposite. So anyway, just because in some context. So here we are. Plagued. The word is afflicted. That might be a new word. The other words are easier. If that wouldn't be where you would start. You would jump at other ones. Endeavor is effort. Cultivate is develop. Again, synonyms, not the same exact meaning. You can't always interchange them. And that's important to know, but you can in some context. And so I had some discussion topics based on some of the things. Discuss the pros and cons of planting fruit trees versus vegetables. Some of those things included, it takes a long time to grow fruit trees, but they're more resilient to snails, and in the early stages during the rain scarce season, I do need to make sure I keep it wet. They need sunlight, of course. Some of my trees die, but a lot of them are growing. They're growing strong, and then you don't really have to do much once their roots are really grown well, and they're going to produce fruit, which you'll get every year once they start. And vegetables, you can have more vegetables quickly, but it takes more work. That's the main thing. It does. It takes a lot of work to garden, and it's more tedious. You're stuck in one place. I like doing. I love just running around the land, and I do different things. I don't know what I'm gonna do today. I just walk. Whoa, these weeds are too big. I'm gonna weed here, and then I don't do the whole thing. I just do a certain area, and then I build a walkway and dig a hole and plant a tree. Kind of running around. Garden is more focused, and so why is it essential to find natural solutions in gardening? Technically, it's not essential. You can garden using non-natural solutions, but because it's my personal garden, and I know. I mean, there's so many poisons in our environment. Modern day. Part of it is like whatever. I believe my body's resilient to poisons. They're causing harm in some ways, but as a species, we're evolving to um, to live amongst poisons. So eventually, some of poisons that might lose their they're not going to be as destructive to us. I believe as well as humanity though, but a lot of us will get diseases that are probably at least compromised by some of the poisons in our everything. I know it. I eat a lot of vegetables. I remember I went to this conference one time on organic farming, and but they were talking about how they use, like, he's saying he's like, oh, it would only be dangerous if you eat it every day or something. I'm like, well, and they were talking about their specific vegetable, and I'm just thinking like, okay, well, everybody's thinking like that, and I do eat vegetables every day, and I even eat much more vegetables than most people, because that's as a vegan, I mean, I'm eating piles of greens. I mean, I eat so many green leafy vegetables every day. A variety of them. At least 3 or 4 different leafy greens, mushrooms, and and all these squashes and stuff. I mean, so I'm if those plants aren't using if they're not natural, I'm going to be consuming a lot of poison. I want to minimize that at least. So by growing a lot of my vegetables, at least I know that, because even you buy organic vegetables, they've done a lot of tests, and they just do whatever they need to do to pass the regulations. So yeah, it's real important. Basically, it's I guess the question is just why is it if you don't do it, who will? Nobody else is looking after you. You can look after yourself and grow your own things. And even like my neighbors are spraying their land, so I'm growing my walls as high as I can, so their little whatever they're spraying on their stuff doesn't trickle over to me, but some of it does, and I breathe some of it, and I have to deal with that. We all do. So how do you think gardening as a family activity can influence family bonds? This opens up a lot of areas. Just it's different. It's different than just going out. I mean, it's fun to do adventures are fun. Camping and rock climbing are ways to bond. But that's different. That's different than bonding with gardening. Is kind of, you get to watch it grow. You get to like produce something together, and then harvest it and eat it and enjoy it. So there's a family bond in that way. That there's different things. Adventure is a different kind of family bond. I like to ask this. I ask my students about what kind of activities do you do? Is it similar to this, or is it similar to this? How does that improve the bonds within your family, either now if you have children, or a lot of my students are children or young teenagers or something, and so they can relate to that. And a fun little activity at the end. These are some of the vegetables that I am growing in my garden, and I mean, as you can see, this is a group of vegetables. This is the specific, and so we look at them all. We've got, this one is pumpkin, tomatoes, garlic, potatoes. These ones are green beans, cucumber, cilantro. I call it cilantro as an American, at least as an American in California. I believe, I don't know even for sure. I'm assuming cilantro is like the Spanish word, and then it's in the English dictionary and an American dictionary, but I think most people that I've met from the UK call it coriander. So I think in English it is coriander, but in at least my area growing up, I've never called it coriander. Although I call the seeds coriander, which is funny. Like, if you can eat the seeds as a seasoning, and those are called coriander. So I call them coriander seeds. Or if I say coriander, ground coriander, I'm referring to the seeds. So to me, I don't know what is the difference, but I think that actually refers to coriander. Me personally, and everyone I've known in my life has called that cilantro. Or not everybody I know, because, like I said, now I hear people use it coriander. I think it's popular in Mexican food, so I call it cilantro. I'm assuming that has a Spanish region that it came from. It sounds Spanish too, but I do call the seeds coriander, so that's good to know, perhaps. But they're actually the same thing. Those are carrots. These are gourds. Gourds it's hard to say what's the difference between like a gourd. You got melons, gourds. They grow on vines. But then you have squash. I mean, I think there's some overlap. I don't think there's a specific. It's hard. This is what I mean. I know this is crazy vegan talk, but like there are so many different kinds of vegetables. To just say like fruits and vegetables, like even within fruits, you've got, and there's a lot of crossover. I don't. I rather not even say fruits and vegetables. I rather like I want roots. You know, I think they're called like what are they called? Tubers or something. But I mean, there's so many different kinds. There's the roots, potatoes and carrots. I try to eat some from every group every day, like either a potato or a carrot, some sort of squash or gourd. I eat a lot of pumpkin and butternut squash. Then there's cucumbers, which are also vine. They grow on the vine. I think they're related to the watermelon because like the closer you get to the watermelon rind, it kind of starts tasting like a cucumber. They grow in a similar way. So the vines. Beans are completely different. They also grow on vines. You know, you've got your nightshades like eggplants, tomatoes. Those are, you know, more in that sense. Some are like strong spices. You've got ginger and garlic. I mean, they're all so much different. This one is okra. And here are none of the leafy greens. I am growing some leafy greens, but we've got a good leafy green connection. I would like to grow my own leafy greens soon. We do have some lettuce and spinach and kale, some and that's definitely. I mean, I'm big on my leafy greens. Broccoli, I consider broccoli in the leafy green category, and that's it. That's it for today. I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.